Welcome back. Welcome back to I Did This Instead of Killing Myself, a stand-up comedy podcast based in Astoria, New York. It's the week of August 7th, 2023. Beautiful Sunday evening as of this recording. I am very relaxed. We have new chairs for the studio. I like it. I like a new chair. Yeah, we got some accent chairs, a brown leather one for our guests, a cream colored one. It feels like a therapist's office or something. I like it. It's coming together. Feel good. I hope you're having a good Monday morning. Hope you're ready for a fantastic week of work, comedy, anything else you're doing. And I don't know. The fact that this feels like a therapy office or a therapist's office, may be fitting for our guest today. Very excited. One of my good friends, I could say good friends, from Asheville. Very funny woman, Miss Julia Macias. Julia is a friend of mine. I once didn't think we were friends, but we are. And she reassured me in this interview that we're friends. Julia describes herself as an antenna for the unwell. So maybe that's why I was drawn to her. This is a little bio she had written for herself. Julia exploded into the Asheville comedy scene late 2021 and has already performed as far as Pensacola, Florida, and Atlanta, Georgia. She also has a stand-up special with 4x3 that will be released later this year, professionally recorded. I highly recommend you check that out. I linked the YouTube channel to 4x3 in the comments, so subscribe to that so you don't miss Julia's special. Also follow her on Instagram. Julia's amazing. She is... We kind of, I think when I first met Julia, I don't know. I had an impression that she didn't like me very much. We talk about this early in the interview. Maybe just because I'm a straight white male who's kind of, oblivious to certain things. And I kind of have like golden retriever type energy at mics. I didn't think Julia wanted anything to do with it, but she's so nice and she actually is great at giving me shit. So we talk about that. Julia is a trans woman. In this interview, she talks about that. She talks about her transition. She shares how she utilizes stand-up, how it's become an outlet for her to share authentic stories and to connect with people. And in Asheville, the crowds are largely tourist crowds, general audiences, may have no prior knowledge of what it's like to be a trans woman, and how she uses her personal material and authentic storytelling and joke structure that she does, how she uses that to connect the personal on a personal level and cut through a lot of the trans issues that are political. I love watching Julia on stage. She never holds back. She's always authentic and honest and very, very funny and very good writing. What else do we talk about? She shares her impression of me. We talk about our relationship. We talk about the F word, not fuck. I don't say it, but talk about that. We talk about anxiety and what produces anxiety in both of us. She shares a story of a past relationship she was in and lessons she learned by being in a relationship where you idealize the other person. You idealize them. And they may be good for you and help you improve yourself, but you idealize them in such a way that it's not real love and connection. It's just an idealized version. She also shares her story of moving to Asheville when she was homeless adjacent, living in extended stay hotels, and how she found meaning and community through the stand-up scene there, which is fantastic. And we also talk about finding balance in stand-up, avoiding burnout, talk about religion, heaven, Catholicism versus evangelical Christianity. Whole lot of good stuff. And more of a serious interview, but I listened to most of it, and really good conversation. I think you'll enjoy it. Check out Julia. Follow her at the links below. Shout out to all the Asheville comedians. Miss you guys a lot, and hope to see you again soon. So hope you enjoy the interview. I think you will. Not going to shout out the local shows, but as a reminder for any of you listening from Greenville or the Carolinas, follow Greenville SC Comedy on Instagram. They'll have information about the shows going on this week. Yeah, hope you guys have a great week. I hope you enjoy my interview with Julia. Here it is. Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Julia Macias.
Hello.
This is the show where I hold my bladder the entire time.
Pisscast. Pisscast.
Yes. Well, thank you for doing the show.
Thank you for finally having me on it, David.
I don't know. I didn't know if you wanted to be on it. I frankly didn't know if you liked me or what's your perception of me? Like what?
Oh, let's start off with describe David. It's all about David. It's the David Show.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
I think you're a chronically anxious person, and I'm frankly confused why you're so scared of women.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it gets laughs. That's why. So it's just a crutch for material.
It's a crutch for material. Then why are you actively afraid of me?
Well, I am afraid of women in general, I guess. It's more so. I would just assume that you didn't like me or my jokes or anything. I think I saw you at a music hall one time, and yeah, I think I was laughing at something really inappropriate. You were standing next to me, and I was like, I looked at you. I was like, yeah, you hate me, don't you? I
don't hate you. I just hate how much you as a straight person say faggot.
Okay.
Several times, quoting my material, but.
What? I didn't say that, did I?
Yeah, you did. You came up to me one time after a show, and you were like, "What's that thing you said on stage? Faggotry?"
Yeah, I didn't say the F word. I said, yeah, because I was curious. It was an adaptation of.
It's yeah.
You will let. I'm not gonna say it on here. I'm
say it.
I don't want you thinking. I don't want people thinking that I say fat. Okay.
Greenville.
It was an adaptation of that word that I never heard before. I was curious.
Okay, well, I'm glad you at least like my innovations.
I do.
I don't hate you. A lot of boy comics seem to think that I hate them because I'm not entirely sure why. I can be cold. I agree. Yeah. But it's not anything that I like try to do. It's not like I actively hate anyone.
I appreciate how direct you are. For example, we were going to maybe have other people on because there was other comics hanging out, and I was like, oh, I'm so agreeable. I'll be like, yeah, do you guys want to be on? And I could tell we planned this for just the two of us. And you were like, no. Like, you can ask them to leave. That gives me anxiety saying, can you guys leave the table? And
what doesn't give you anxiety, David?
Good question. I never thought about it in those terms. Talking to you, I feel very comfortable now. I feel at ease. I feel like, yeah.
Glad I can provide.
Does anything give you anxiety?
Everything? Constantly, all the time. I'm one of the most nervous people I've ever met. I started a few years ago when I started working at Papa John's, and you can check out my comedy if you want to hear more about that. But I had a coworker, this guy Diogo, came up to me on like my third day and said, "You are the most anxious person I've ever met." And I was like, "Yeah." And people now don't believe that because I do comedy and I'm very outgoing in that way. I'm very good at doing things that would terrify other people, public speaking, attempting suicide. But when it comes to things like giving the gas station attendant money for gas, which is their job, I'm always like, oh no, what if they think I'm weird?
You think that?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Has that gone away since doing comedy, or that's still a thing?
It's still here.
Oh, goodness.
It's like, it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah. When the Papa John's person said, you're the most anxious person he's ever met, what mannerisms was he noticing about you?
I asked him that, and he said it's just everything about you. He was like, you're skittish. You're always looking over your shoulder, and it seems like you're terrified of what everyone thinks all the time. And I was like, yeah, no, you got me down in 3 days.
Yeah. Wow.
I dated someone for 2 years, and even she was like, you're like a mystery to me. And I was like, you don't pay fucking attention then.
Yeah.
It's all right here on the surface.
Mm-hmm. You dated someone for 3 years, and they did it. You felt like
2
they
years.
Did it 2 years.
No, not really. I mean, it was.
Yeah.
I don't think it. I think that was a lot more of like, she was, the ideal of a partner was what she saw in me. Like she would call me. This was before I transitioned. I'm a trans woman. I feel like I should say something about that because it's 2023. I don't want anyone to assume I'm just a cool guy. I'm a weird girl.
Okay.
Yeah, suits me very well. No, it was before I transitioned, and she would call me her manic pixie dream boy, which is. Are you familiar with the whole manic pixie dream? No.
What is that?
It's a trope in a lot of fiction. You can think of like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
I've seen that movie.
Yeah,
who's the Pixie Dream Boy? Is that Jim Carrey's character?
No, it'd be the Manic Pixie Dream Girl, which would be Zooey Deschanel. And even though that's more of like a lampooning of the trope, like it's kind of a really good example where it's the idealizing of a partner in the way that they can make you better rather than actually liking them as a person.
What can I get out of this? Not who are you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like what can you do for me? You know, you're just so wild and crazy, and it feels like you bring out the best parts of me. And it's focusing on that aspect because I mean, naturally, you want to be in a relationship with someone where you feel like you can be yourself, and you feel like those parts of you that you're more scared to show can come out. But if you're only focusing on that on that aspect and not on like, this is a relationship and this is a partnership, then it's toxic.
How did that manifest itself? Did it feel like you were the one always being supportive and there was nothing coming back?
It was always I had to be at the ready, at the beck and call, like whenever she needed me, and if I wasn't there when she needed me, then she would like start to spiral out of control. And don't get me wrong, I like being there for people, I like being supportive, but there's a certain line where it becomes like very toxic.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that I was like without sin in this relationship. I don't know. I was like 18 when we started dating. You're supposed to be a dirtbag when you're 18, and I wasn't super dirty, but it was, you know, it's like a nice lay in the grass amount of dirt that I had dragging around.
So it got to a point like where you felt like she didn't even know you, right? Like who you really.
No.
That's the frustrating thing to me in relationships is you don't feel seen, like you don't feel understood.
Yeah. Have you had that in a lot of your relationships?
Oh yeah. In fact, well, I don't even know if I understood myself until, through comedy, learning how to express myself honestly. Because look what I said about the agreeable thing and like not wanting to offend people or like just always want everybody to like you. You don't even know who you really are if you're like lying to people constantly. So it wasn't on them that they didn't understand me. I mean, I didn't.
Yeah. Well, why were you constantly lying to them?
Because I was afraid of rejection, afraid of, this is all stuff in therapy, but yeah, afraid of not feeling loved if they saw the real person. So I think fundamentally that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's hard to, and that's why I like stand-up, because if you're authentic on stage, it seems to get rewarded if, you have to have good joke structure and stuff, but on a baseline, if you're authentic, you feel accepted.
Right.
It's kind of more the real you. And speaking of that, I love watching you on stage. Anytime, really, you're good. But there are certain times, especially when you are like going in on something without any sort of, hesitation, and you're being very authentic. Like, I'm trying to remember specific rants I've heard. There's certain things about therapy that you'll talk about, or when you drop the F-bomb, certainly.
Oh, yeah. Just screaming faggot.
Screaming the yeah.
I see myself less as a comedian and more as a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
And it just so happens my stories are funny, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the best outlet. This is the best way for me to tell the stories. I don't hold back, and I that's a very intentional choice I made really early on. I did on my very first like feature show. I had a lot more of the jokes that I was doing back then were more like goofy, over the top. You know, I have one that I still keep in the back pocket, but I don't really get to do very often. It's called Reclaiming Buffalo Bill, where the whole thing is just I'm a serial killer. You know, I'm a trans serial killer, and it's so hard for me. But like after that show, you know, and I had some material that I even still keep in the rotation, stuff about explaining my experience as a trans person.
Mm-hmm.
And I had someone come up to me after the show and tell me that like my set helped them understand their child's transition. And I really internalized that a lot, and the way that like people approach me and approach my comedy, as well as the way that I approach the stage now, where it's like I recognize that every room I get in front of is a cis room. It's a cisgender room. Like there aren't if I want to be in front of a trans audience, that's something that I have to build over years.
Yeah.
But where I am now is I'm getting up in Asheville, North Carolina, especially. It's mostly tourists. It's mostly people from the South. It's people where their only experience is Tucker Carlson being like, transgenderism, is it communism?
Yeah.
And so like I know I have to get up in front of that audience, and I am a representative. There aren't a lot of trans people that are out with a stage being able to talk about this, and it's a small stage. It's a very, very small stage that I have. But you know, it's and being more true and more authentic to who I am helps with that. And making I see a lot of it as I'm humanizing trans people as a whole through humanizing myself. I get up on stage and I talk about just terrible trauma that I've been through, very hurtful things, and I'm talking about it in a very like fun, goofy way. But are you turning me down?
It was a little high.
It was a little high. I'm sorry.
No,
very
you're
loud.
good. I just wanted to. No, it's totally fine.
Yeah. You're good. I want, like, I have to not pull punches on the trauma, because the humanity of that, of being able to say I've been hurt before, makes me look a little bit more human, rather than like this vague face of like woke cancel culture. That a lot of these people,
it humanizes the whole thing from a political issue to like where people have these bad notions.
The personal is political and the political is personal, and a lot of people don't understand that. But they don't understand that like conceptually. They get it intuitively. Like if I am on stage in front of them, and I'm trying to work to the point where I'm able to do this, where I'm able to have enough stage time and be able to do big enough shows, long enough sets, where I'm able to get on stage and say, hey, there's all these politicians out there who want to murder me and all of my friends. And get to the point where it's like I can say something like that and it makes something click in their head, in the heads of the people that have a negative or like are undecided on the trans issue. Make them realize that it's not about politics, it's about people.
Exactly right. Parents that came up to you after that show where they said that your set helped them understand more about their child's transition, what do you think it was about the bit specifically that resonated with them? Or I don't know if maybe they were specific about what hit home for them, but
they weren't specific. But there was a bit that I was doing very, very early on. It's cycled out now. Just I have better stuff that does the same thing. Where I talk about how like before I transitioned, like it was a very the reason why I transitioned is at the end of the day very social. Like I don't relate to men the way that men relate to other men, you know, and the way that men exist in community with each other never quite clicked for me. You know, it's like a lot of my dude friends all thought I was real mean because I'd say things that now I understand it was just me being a little bit of a catty bitch, and the girlies love it.
Yeah.
But like, dudes are so sensitive. Dudes are so sensitive, and I didn't understand that. You know, I've got real thick skin, and I thought what I was saying was like fun and funny, but like,
you're offending a lot of your dude friends.
Yeah, it was like they'd get mad at me. It was always like, bro, you think you're being funny, but you're not. Like, it was that kind of shit.
Dude, I would be that guy. I would be,
Yeah, no.
I wouldn't push back, though. I'd just go home and cry about it.
Yeah, exactly. David, if you had met me before I transitioned, you wouldn't think that I hated you, but you would hate me.
No.
Yeah.
I would just feel bad. I would just be like, okay, how could I change my personality so that, you'd accept me?
Yeah, so that this guy likes me more. That's
here's
such a sad...
here's a new avatar.
Yeah, that's such a sad...
Isn't it?
Such a sad way to live.
It's tragic. It's so bad. You're right.
Yeah. How do you still do that? Are you still changing yourself to?
Not nearly as much. Not nearly as much.
I'm proud of you.
I can tell when I am, and I can kind of. I still have the impulse, but I can kind of hopefully try and turn it off, and I can sense it on stage too. I get that feeling. Like I can feel when I'm not myself, and when I'm acting out of fear or, trying to. And it's trying to like give them what I think they want to hear versus just being. And I'm trying to get better to where I'm always in that mode of, but it's hard still.
It is very hard. The hardest thing in life is being yourself, especially when you're. I'm just gonna take a wild guess here, David, and say that you didn't have the best childhood.
I had it
with the other kids.
On paper, it was amazing. I never knew I had a bad childhood or a hard childhood until I examined it a little more closely. It was all stuff I internalized of performing for love versus, just being okay with failure, being okay with getting an A-, for example. Never got an A-.
Wow.
I was valedictorian. I never, I would have got an ulcer if I, I would have hurt myself if I didn't. That's
impressive. Wow.
No, it's not.
No, I mean it's impressive that you're willing to burn yourself that much.
Yeah.
That was an expectation that was set for me. It was always.
Did you have that overachiever kind of thing?
I wasn't an overachiever. I was just when I was really young, like we did the Iowa tests, and I tested very high. Like I was testing
what is that test?
The Iowa test. It's like a standardized testing. It's regularly given out to like elementary schoolers to see like where they are.
Their natural level of intelligence?
Sure. It measures something like that. I'm not I don't know enough about like the psychology and the science of it, but
you scored high in that.
I scored very high. Like when I was in first grade, I was scoring in every test. I was either on a high school or a college level.
Wow.
Like that I was very naturally good with like reading comprehension and like mathematic reasoning. And so that was a very high expectation set for me. But when it came time to actually like do school and do academics, it never, I just couldn't. Like I had a teacher who made us turn in our notes for homework grades, just to prove that we had done them. And we got like a completion grade for taking notes. But like I just was never able to. Like I didn't take enough notes.
Yeah.
And I didn't keep my notebook organized the right way, and and so I also like missed a lot of homework assignments. It was and what I internalized from that was like, oh, I'm just lazy, which isn't true. I can be very motivated, but I mean, obviously, I do fucking open mic. When I first started, I was doing open mic 5 or 6 nights a week. I can be very motivated. I can be very on a schedule, but it was just something about school that just like wasn't able to click for me.
I hear you. I was the exact opposite. So I had the work ethic. I wanted to achieve. Because I saw the grade as the gold star that I needed. But when it came to fluid intelligence and just straight IQ, I wasn't very strong. I remember there was a standardized test I had to take at one point, and it didn't even count for a grade, but they gave back the percentiles of like where I stacked up relative to like everybody. And I think I was like middle of the pack or like a B range, and I came home and I was in my basement and I like cried over it. Like I was like, I'm stupid. Like people are gonna find out that I'm stupid. Like this was like what I didn't want people to know. In the ACT, like SAT stuff, I studied so hard for it, and I took it several times, and I got my score up eventually, but to a good score. But I was always afraid of being found out when it came to intelligence, and yeah, it's weird how that manifests in different kind of ways. I mean, with your stand-up work ethic, how do you feel about that? Like,
I mean,
you're able to just commit to. Are you still doing?
I'm not doing it that
quantity of
much.
mics?
No, I'm not doing it that much because it was killing me. You know, when I started doing stand up, here's some Julia lore. I had recently, when I moved to Asheville, I was homeless adjacent. You know, I was in an extended stay hotel for a while until like the money ran out for that, and then I was living in my car.
Is your family here?
No.
Oh.
I'm from South Carolina. I moved to Asheville because I was transitioning and I was living in South Carolina, and it was not safe. Let's just leave it at that. And so I moved to Asheville because I heard it was like, oh, it's like a trans paradise. And I get here, it's just a bunch of cis women with crystals who are like, I feel like there's a lot of masculine and feminine energy in all of us. That's why my name's Robin, but sometimes I go by Bethany. And so like when I got here, I was living like it was like real Hail Mary for me to like find some kind of like safety and security.
Yeah.
And I don't really like drinking that much. I know you've seen me very drunk before, but I don't.
Not really. I never thought you were
Oh well, David, you've seen me very drunk.
buzzed, maybe, but
I hold it together very well.
Yeah.
I was like, it was a safe place for me to go, where I knew I was going to be under a roof all night, and
yeah.
there was going to be free food, and I could probably get some drinks to make myself feel better about my living situation. And then I also found like community, and it was a very safe place for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then as time has gone on, you know, it's like I'm not like it made me realize being in the cycle of go to work, get off work, run to comedy, go home, pass out, wake up, go to work, run to comedy. Like it wasn't very fulfilling for me, like in my life outside of, because that is the thing. When I find something that I want to grind against, I will grind until I'm gone. And so it's been more of a health and like wellness decision for me to be like, I'm going to go out to maybe 3 nights a week for open mic. And then you know, I get booked on local shows pretty regularly through Model Face Comedy. Follow them on Instagram. So that's it. It was just a health decision I made for myself.
Balance.
And finding balance.
Yeah.
I need Julia time.
Mm-hmm.
I can't always be on stage and dealing with comedians.
Yeah. I kind of have a hard time with that, and I wonder if it's something I should explore is the mic attendance. If I'm not at a mic in a night of the week where I know there is one, I will feel very guilty, and it's like that old kind of like, you know, overachiever kind of mindset creeping in of like, I would love to be able to be like, yeah, it's fine to miss a mic, you know, it's okay.
It is fine. It took me a while to get there because, you know, I also I'm sure you've noticed, I turned out material really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was always like, well, I have a new thing to say. I have a new thing to say. Oh, I have a new thing to say on this old thing that I was saying. And so it's like constantly putting myself out there.
Yeah.
But I was burning myself out.
At what point did you know you had to slow down? Was there a moment where you were like, okay,
I think
I literally am spent? Like, how did you know?
I think there wasn't like a singular moment, but it was like someone invited me out, and I wasn't going to go because I was like, well, I have to go to open mic tonight. And then I thought about it to myself, and I was like, well, I went to open mic last night, and the night before that I was working, and the night before that I was working, and the night before that I was at open mic. And I treat comedy like a second job, so I mean, I guess kind of being at open mic is like being at work. Oh God, I work 2 full-time jobs. Mm-hmm. That's how I'm separate. That's how I work my hours. That's how I treat my time.
Yeah.
So I was like, This is not a job that I'm getting paid for. This is not a job I have to be there for. Everyone in the scene knows me, and they know I'm good. I can take time off and just live my life.
For sure. Is there any part of you that feels like you need comedy?
I need artistic expression.
Yeah.
I need an outlet, and I need to talk about these things. And I write like that for like I tried writing my first book when I was like 7. You know, it's been like a lifelong thing for me.
Hell yeah.
It's not any good. Don't get excited.
Don't shit on it.
I will shit on.
Is it in any sort of form, like a manuscript that you still have?
I burned it.
You burned it?
I burned them all.
What was the book about?
Let's not talk about it.
You know what? Okay.
That's a secret I'm taking to my grave.
Right.
But I've always written, and it's always been like I love telling stories, and I love all of that. And the way that I'm writing, and the way that comedy works, where it's not like I have to have a set time to sit down, sit still, and just look at a page and put stuff on that page. Where it's something where I can like have fun little thoughts all day, and then I can go and I can tell people about my fun little thoughts. It's a lot more conducive to the way that I am functioning right now.
And that's how you write. Fun little thoughts.
Fun little thoughts.
You don't overthink about. Because I feel like I kind of write similar. Like you don't know exactly where the laughs are going to be.
Oh no, I do.
You're precise. Yeah, actually, yeah.
I know what's funny.
Yeah.
I'm a very good judge of it.
Yeah. Will you ever go up there with just an idea and just talk?
No. Oh God, no.
No?
When we were talking earlier about, am I ever nervous? Am I ever worried? Hell yeah. And one of the biggest things I'm worried about is being caught without my script and not knowing my lines.
Yeah.
Everything I say is incredibly structured.
Okay.
I have it whittled down to the word in my head.
I guess when you said fun little thoughts, I was missing. I guess I misinterpreted. I thought maybe you'd go up with like.
Oh, I mean, I do. Like my fun little thoughts are
meticulously crapted.
Yeah,
I see.
It's a grindstone up there.
Yeah.
And sometimes the fun little thoughts are things I probably shouldn't share. One time I saw a sign. I would talk about this in my set, but I'll talk about it here. I saw a sign that said furniture with a soul, and then my brain made like 5 degrees of connection in like 2 seconds, and I was like, oh, that's why you're allowed to shoot dogs in the head with a nail gun. Like that was the conclusion of the thought, and that was a fun little thought that I had, but it was very structured. Like I knew where all the connective tissue was. I know how I got from A to G, but yeah, no, I think in structure.
Yeah. That's how you know it's okay to shoot a dog with a nail gun.
Yeah, because furniture has a soul, which means that it could go to heaven or hell. And then you also have to treat it nicely, because whether or not you go to heaven or hell is based on whether or not you treated things with souls nicely. And that's why you're allowed to shoot a dog in the head with a nail gun and still go to heaven.
Do you think heaven's real? Or hell? You're agnostic, huh?
I was raised Catholic, and it's really hard to not be agnostic after that.
Yeah.
I'm superstitious.
Yeah.
But I believe I like to believe that there's something else out there, but it's hard to judge.
Yeah. For sure. I ask that to every guest, I swear. Mostly because I'm very curious about it. I don't.
Do you believe in heaven?
I think heaven exists here right now. Like moments that I've had in comedy with people, when you're connecting with a person, when you're free, moments where like I find it in music, or like when you're dancing, having fun, laughing with friends, like those moments where you're not thinking about what you have to do, like what your next task of your day is, or any insecurity, whatever. You're just enjoying. You're kind of outside of time to me when those moments happen. And to me, that's kind of like an eternal element. Like it's not even part of the material world. I wouldn't even know how you would quantify what a laugh is in material terms. Like it's like there's energy happening, or mechanical signals, I guess.
Yeah, it's emotional expression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that to me is heaven, and I hope that continues in some form after the physical body dies. I hope the soul lives on, and I think love is a real thing, like loving other people.
Yeah, no, love is, I mean, that's a natural part of being like a part of a social pact.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're social pack animals at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And God is love, and despite the problems of like, organized religion and stuff, they do talk a lot about love. I don't know if they embody it or provide a good example, but it's kind of in there. Like I've looked at it with a different perspective now, I think. But I still do not know. I'm open to new information. So, yeah. Anyway.
yeah.
Did you go from a period of like fervent belief in Catholicism as a child to like not, or did it never resonate?
It's really hard to say. I was like an altar server, and so I was part of the rituals, and I paid a lot of mind to that. It wasn't. I will say I didn't have reverence for God. I had reverence for the ritual.
Sure.
I was able to be like, oh well, these are the things that we do, and it's important that we do things in this order. Why? Who knows? But I've been told that I have to hold this candle real solemn like. So
Yeah.
Like in that way, I wasn't fervently into it, but I did have this intense need to live to the rule and like those systems and those rituals. I think I was very young. Like I was probably a teen, like 12 or 13 when I was first like, I don't think God's real, and it wasn't like this huge crisis for me. It wasn't like I think what it was actually was like I had a crush on a girl who went to the same church as I did, and I was praying to God. I was like, please let her like me. And then she started dating a tall boy, and I was like, God's not real.
That'll do it, man.
That will
That'll
do
do
it.
it.
That will do it.
Yeah.
So I wasn't fervently believing in God, and I don't fervently believe in not God. So I think I've been agnostic my whole life. I just didn't realize it for a long time.
Yeah. I look fondly at Catholicism now. It's kind of interesting. I was evangelical.
Fondly. Oh, evangelical. God, I'm so sorry.
Evangelical, non-denominational. So a lot of like, kind of rock band style services, casual. There wasn't the ornaments and the ritual stuff that Catholicism has. And at the time, and it was always kind of sold within the church as like, this is a better way to approach religion. A personal relationship with Jesus, and then, you really work on that feeling of, how to be right with God, and you had to spend this time. And a lot of that's, it's great for some people, I think. But in hindsight, I think, I don't know. You internalize a lot of guilt when you make it that personal, and when your fundamental thing you're told when you're first starting is you're a sinner, and nothing you could ever do would ever measure up, but by the grace of Christ you can be saved. Like, the grace part's great, but the guilt you really feel, and you still feel like you have to perform in order to do anything. And I think that can not just be religious or moral; it can be, achievement.
Yeah, Catholic guilt's real. With Catholicism, it's less like the guilt doesn't come from like you are inherently born a sinner. It's more like you are born into sin, and through the sacrament of baptism and through communion, you have the sin is washed away. But the guilt with Catholicism comes a lot more like they are very big on like your thoughts can be sins.
Yeah.
And they're so big on Catholics love sin. They love sin so much. Anything
Talking about it
and listing the things that can be sins and the things that are sins. And it's basically just anything that makes your life worth living.
Yeah. I guess why I look back fondly on it is because to me there's more of a separation that I saw in my Catholic friends, where it was like, because it's religion, you know. It's like we're going to a beautiful building with stained glass windows. There's like a separation between your day-to-day life and then when you go to mass. And like I see my friends that grew up Catholic and they were more well adjusted, at least the friends I had. They could separate out, like they didn't beat themselves up too much over their sin, if that makes sense.
That, I guess I can see that. Like,
whereas it could be inseparable from, you know, everything else in your life when you internalize it in the non-denominational Christian sense.
Yeah. Well, what a good Catholic would say is that then they're not living right if they're if they're separating their sins from their daily lives, because their daily lives are where all the sins are.
I have met militant Catholics who would, yeah, totally. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, religion.
You love the light topics here on your podcast.
I do.
Last week you were talking about 9/11.
Oh, the one that we recorded last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be coming out soon.
Soon. It's already you're recording this after that one. Wouldn't that one come out first?
Oh yeah, this one. Never mind. This will come out. I've got a lot. I got a lot pre-recorded right now. Yes.
It'll be coming out last week.
It'll be coming out last. You're smart, Julia. See, this is why I'm dumb. Yes.
Thank you. You're not dumb, David. You're like a little puppy dog.
Yeah. Somebody told me I have golden retriever energy.
You really do.
Yeah. What do you think? Think I should lean into that? You think that'll work for stand-up? It's who I am, so I can't really not do it.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think leaning into it would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Always lean into your strengths. Always lean in where.
Yeah.
You know.
It's fine. I could see it being annoying to people. I thought it was annoying to you. To be honest, that's part of what I thought. And like, why is he laugh at everything? I thought you were thinking like, why is he having fun? And
I enjoy that. I like that in other people. I'm in the back analyzing.
Sure.
I'm running through the mind cage and being like, well, what's funny about this? How's the structure? What is the like hand gesture?
Mm-hmm.
I'm deconstructing everyone else's set as they're doing it.
Yeah.
Which is probably terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure everyone prefers you in the audience to me.
Yeah. Well, I've looked at you in the back row before, and I don't stay looking at you long because I'm like, Julia is not going to think this is funny. I got to go to somebody who's giving me, a smile. Not that you haven't smiled. I've seen you, but yeah. Like, I want to look at the girl in the front row who's like that.
Yeah, it's important to have both of those people in the audience. So you have one to give you the energy, and the other one to humble you.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever been to like in a rotation of open mics? And I'm asking this for a reason, but where it was all comics,
not
consistently.
No, because it's Asheville.
Okay, yeah, I'm realizing how great the shows are here. I'm by the time this comes out, I'll be in New York City, but I went this weekend and dropped some stuff off, and I drove back this morning. Yeah, I got back this morning, and it is all comics for all of the mics, and I kind of like it. It's forcing me to get more, disciplined about writing how you write, in terms of like making sure everything is pre-structured. Whereas I'll feel comfortable going in front of an audience and just relying on personality and like energy to make something versus, really having punchlines that are dialed in. So I don't know what I'm saying. I guess. Do you what are your thoughts on that? If you only had to perform in front of open mic comics for a long period of time,
it'd probably feel pretty bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I've proven to myself that I can do the grind if I have to.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be happy about it.
Yeah.
I like comedy because there's validation from a group of strangers.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not getting that, then what's the point,
Sure. I see there being benefits to performing in front of comics. Like you can't fuck around really. It's like get to the fucking punchline.
Yeah, I already don't fuck around.
Yeah, I know you already don't. I do. I'm saying but
I fuck around on the long sets.
Mm-hmm.
Like the 20-30 minute mark for me is around when I can just kind of like loosen up and be like, You guys want to hear about this thing I just thought about? You know, I kind of go into Moira Gory mode a little bit.
Right.
I saw her last week. And
Shout out Moira.
Yeah, I love Moira. And, you know, I can loosen up in that way, but if I only have 5 minutes and I know I have 7 minutes that I want to be working on, you know, like right now I have 2 jokes in my little open mic rotation, and one of them is a whole 5 minutes long. I can't fuck around if I want to work on that. I have to get on stage and immediately start throwing myself into it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen you do long sets, and when you always seem pretty comfortable on stage, but I'm impressed when you do a long set because you settle in pretty quickly. I don't see nerves at all. How long have you been doing it now?
About 1.5 years.
Jesus. Yeah.
How long have you been doing it?
It'll be 3 years in July. So it's started kind of during COVID in Greenville and gradually. But it's gotten, you know, it's been fun seeing different scenes, you know, the reputation Greenville has, you know, of it's just a newer, younger, beginner type scene for a lot of the younger comics. I was one of those, and then coming up to Asheville has been great. Who are your comedy mentors? Do you think Moira definitely?
Moira Gory and Cody Hughes are probably the big two that have them as like very consistent mentors of like being there to talk to me and give me advice and help me like expand what I'm able to do on stage. And especially in the way like where Cody does a lot more of the weird stuff and Moira does a lot of storytelling, and I do a lot of both. And so being able to see the way that they form the material and the way that they deliver the material, carry themselves on stage, I think it comes across. If you are familiar with the way Cody Hughes is on stage, I think it's very clear when you see how I perform.
His influence on your...
Yeah, especially Cody more so than Moira, because Moira's a lot more freeform.
What about Cody do you think you've taken away?
It's the way he holds his hands.
Do you ever take the mic out of the stand like he does, where he like just I've noticed he's done this recently, where it's almost like he doesn't even get behind it. He just grabs it like an afterthought and just gets right into...
I do that with my when I think knowing how to hit the stage is incredibly important, and I have 2 or 3 different bits that I like to open with, and one of them I run on and I just grab the mic stand and I start talking into it, and then as I'm finishing the punchline, it's like a 10-second bit. It's like a one-liner, and as I'm finishing the punchline, pop it out, move it behind me. I'm talking more.
Yeah.
I did a special taping with 4x3 Productions in June. It's going to be coming out later this year.
Do you know when?
I don't have the exact date yet. I'll send it to you when I know the exact date.
Okay.
But seeing the pictures from that and seeing just the way that I was standing, and Cody does this thing where he'll put his hand behind his back and he'll kind of talk into the floor. And I don't do the talking into the floor bit, but I do stand with my hand right behind my back, just a whole awful lot.
Yeah.
So I think Cody has influenced me a lot. Moira's influenced me a lot. P.D. Smith McDowell,
dude,
has not done a lot to influence me, but occasionally he comes up and just gives me one good note.
Yeah.
And God damn it, it's always the right one. He's always right.
Follow P.D. Smith McDowell if you haven't. We haven't had him on yet, but he has got so much charisma on stage. He's just instantly likable, and he has that command of the room.
He's just so fun and smiley.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, he smiles.
He's just got that big goofy grin on his face, and he's all. It's magnetic. I'm always impressed with him. So far from anything that I am able to do. Yeah, I've seen him do the same bit so many times, and he never says the exact same thing every time, and I think that's incredibly impressive.
Yeah.
I know everything I'm going to say to the word before I get up.
Yeah, I do something similar, and I didn't consciously do this, and I don't know but you mentioned you pop the mic out of the stand after you finish your first one-liner. I don't even do a joke with it, but I'll address the audience, and I won't move on or move the mic out of the stand until I feel like they're all looking at me. until I feel like they have their attention. Like I'm not gonna continue until they've. It doesn't have to be big, but like eye contact. Or I feel like they're paying attention. Then I'll start. But I won't ever go into a joke if I feel like they're not, paying attention.
I feel like make them listen, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That's my approach.
I think that there might be something implicitly about you're in this, you're center of the stage and you're not taking out the stand. I don't know. I mean, I have done it before. Did you ever leave the mic in the stand the entire set? I've done that before.
I think when I first started,
yeah,
my first few open mics, I left the mic in the stand because I was scared of holding it.
Mm-hmm.
I think now I'm at a I like to walk around.
Yeah.
I like moving about the stage and pacing, and so I just can't really do that.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll just get in a mood where I'll just do that for some reason. Most of the time I'll take it out and move the stand back, but
yeah, no, I noticed. Sometimes you get up there and you have your little Jerry Seinfeld hands. Just like,
Jerry Seinfeld hands? That's what you notice? Okay. That's helpful. I didn't know that
Yeah, I pay attention to your sets, David.
What do you think?
You're okay. I don't think you should be going to New York. I feel like that's gonna hurt, but
Yeah, it's gonna hurt. You're right. I'm not going because I think it's about to pop off or anything like that. I'm going because I'm old and I have the means and things around my life I can do it right now, and I'd rather do it now than wait. Yeah, and I'd rather.
You're
grind.
doing it for more the life experience.
The life experience, yeah. And I want to get better, and I want to, be around better comics and get my kicked teeth in. Yeah. So, but yeah. So of your comedy mentors and all of your, what's the best piece of comedy advice you've ever received?
I don't think that there's been a single piece of advice. Usually the things people say to me, like the things PD said to me, have been very specific to, you have this one line in this one joke, work on it. And the way that Cody works as a comedy mentor is a lot less like he's giving me advice and more like I'm watching him.
Yeah.
And I'm paying attention to what he's doing. And most of Moira's advice is a lot more like from one trans comic to another trans comic, remember you have to explain yourself. Not everyone in the room is going to get it. There's going to be people in the room who don't get what you got going on, what we got going on, and you're going to have to accept that and just keep moving. Have something in there for the people that just don't know what a trans is, but you kind of just gotta push through it sometimes.
Right.
Like that's just the best advice I've ever gotten. Sometimes you just gotta push through it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What's your favorite thing to do outside of comedy?
Outside of comedy?
You're like, there isn't anything.
Yeah. Sit on my couch, get bitten by my roommate's cat. It's the funny answer. I don't know. I like live music. I love getting punched in the face in someone's basement. You know what I mean?
You're masochist?
No. I like mosh pits.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
They have basement mosh pit parties in Asheville?
Yeah. It's a lot of college kids at metal shows in the basements in East Asheville, but their shows, they're good. They can be good.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I think I have a hard time coming up with answers too. Since starting comedy, what do you like to do?
Yeah,
what else is there?
Exactly. This is my life, like 3 nights a week. What do you mean?
Yeah. How are we doing on time? I don't have my phone.
It is 8:30.
Okay. Well, we can wrap it up here in a few.
Yeah.
What other questions do I ask to close usually? What's your biggest failure in life?
I've never failed, David.
Never failed.
I'm sure I failed at some point. My biggest failure, I don't think I've really failed. I've beefed it a lot, but I don't think I've ever failed. never face planted into rock bottom, but I've definitely slipped and stumbled. I don't know. A lot of it was a failure to make myself understood and a failure to be myself. You know, being
Sure.
this whole thing, this whole trans thing. You know, it's like being failure to push through, I think. Like, there were a lot of times in my life, I started my transition in 2020, and the first time I ever thought about transitioning was in 2016, you know.
So putting off what you knew.
It was putting it off because I was always like, what if no one accepts me? And I don't think that's failure necessarily. I think that's fear. I think that's...
Sure.
I was living in Sumter, South Carolina. I was surrounded by conservatives all around me. Conservative family, people saying horrible things about trans people just the whole time. And then even when I got to college, like, even the more progressive and queer friends of mine were still new to the whole trans thing and they weren't sure about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was more like I was just in an environment where it wasn't going to be acceptable for me to be myself. And a failure to push through that, I kick myself about it sometimes. I'm like, I could have started sooner. I would be in a better place now if I'd started sooner. But like, at the same time, I did it.
Yeah.
I pushed through eventually. But so I don't think I've ever failed.
So was 2020 what was that? Was it the catalyst of the pandemic and this whole? I mean, this might be a whole story.
Yeah. No. So it was a series of things. Like I mentioned earlier, you know, it was the realization that I couldn't exist in a male social group and be comfortable and happy. And that forced revelation was from, being in quarantine and just having like my dude roommates around, just everyone just drinking whiskey out of bean cans, because glassware is for fags. And, being in that environment. And then I started talking to someone, this nice non-binary person who I was very pre-transition, had a full beard. I was very hairy. I presented incredibly masculine. And that's how they approached me. That's how they treated me. It was the natural suspicion of, you might be a serial killer. And certain things about me looked like red flags to them because they were reading me as a man. And it was weeks after we stopped talking where I was just constantly like, if they just understood that I was a lesbian trapped in a man's body, then we wouldn't have this problem. And it was months of me saying that to myself. I was working as a delivery driver at the time, so I had a lot of time alone in my car to myself of just repeating that line. If only everyone understood that I was a lesbian trapped in a man's, like that exact phrase over and over and over again for months on end before it finally clicked. I was like, why don't I just do it? Why don't I just be, instead of being a lesbian trapped inside of a man, why don't I just be a lesbian, you know? And I have to credit a very good friend of mine, Lennon. They, we'd met when we were 18, and it was before they transitioned. It was before I transitioned. And they came out as trans masculine first, and they just like popped back into my life one day, and and it was having someone to be able to talk to about it and make it feel normal, and just know that if no one else supported it, if no one else understood it, if no one else got it, I could always call Lennon. And it was knowing that I was going to have support and I was going to have community, even if it was only one person. That's what really got me to transition.
Wow. And as you've gone through this, was it, once you made the decision, how much peace did you have about like, okay, like, I have this community now. I have this one friend to start.
Most of my friends are very accepting. In fact, it was a lot of, no one was surprised. Not a single person. Everyone was like, all my guy friends were like, "Oh, that's why you're such a bitch," you know, like. And the girls who I used to hang out with, like the legions of lesbians and butches and dykes that I all hung out with, they were like, "We were waiting for you to figure it out. We've been waiting for you to get here for years." And I was like, "Why did no one tell me?" You know? I mean,
You felt like you were finally being yourself?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
they were also happy to see it because they could tell I was miserable. And I'd attempted suicide in 2020, and it was an open secret. It wasn't. It was a very public meltdown that I had about that. So, all of my friends were very aware of what was going on, and the fact that this just clicked into place, and everyone was like, "Oh, thank God!" So I had community, I had people around, and yeah, it was good.
Awesome. I guess last question. What do you want out of comedy? Do you want to do this as your full-time thing?
I'd like to try that. I'd
Yeah.
like to try touring. Being
Yeah.
a full-time touring comic. That sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. I'm just kind of looking for something to enable me to write and express. And if I can write for a TV show or be in a writer's room for a late night show or something like that, that'd be lovely. If I could run a show, what I want out of comedy is to open a door that leads to a hallway that I can open a door in, and then just do that 6 or 7 more times until someone just hands me a blank check and says, "Make whatever you want."
Yeah.
Like, that's what I want.
Yeah, that's a great answer. How old are you?
I am 24.
You're 24?
Yeah.
See, this is why.
Did you think I was younger?
Older.
Oh.
Not because of any. You seem very mature for 24.
I'm worn down by the world, David.
Yes.
I'm so tired.
Would you ever move to New York City?
I've thought about it. I think
Yeah.
it's not something I'm really actively considering. I know times are getting scary down here in Dixie for a girl like me, and so definitely thinking about leaving the South, but that does make me sad in a way, because this is my home.
Yeah.
I grew up here, and I hate to have to leave, but
Yeah.
the changing political climate and the growing hostilities, it feels like
Yeah.
if I don't make the choice in the next few years, I'm going to be forced to make a choice in the few years after that. So
Yeah, there's no rush, especially, you're 24. This is a great scene. I'm only basing this off of like 2 days of information, but it is awesome so far. Despite how shitty the mics are, the quantity of mics and stage time, pretty affordable stuff in Queens, Astoria, and it was just surreal to me. Like when I went to my first mic on Sunday, normally that's it goes however, you talk to comics and you go home, but the idea of being able to get on a subway, go into Manhattan, and go to another one, I was like, this is crazy. So it's cool. I think you'd love it. So I'm just trying to tell everybody that I've met here to come.
Yeah.
But
I'll come visit you, David.
and again, I could hate it. I've only been there a couple days. Like maybe this will be, but yeah, would love for you to come visit. So anything you want to shout out? And you mentioned your special.
Yeah, coming out 4x3 Productions later this year. You can follow me on, and if you want updates on that, you can follow me on Instagram at julia.c.macias. That's Macias. And otherwise, have a great night.
Yep, follow her. She's great. All right, thanks for doing the show. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
See you next time.
Day was done. Ain't got no more boats to run. Once that day was done. Ain't got no boats to run. Once that day was done.